What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Welcome back into JC's Pop Culture. I'm JC. Here we're talking movie news, movie reviews, video game news, whatever pop culture shit we want to talk about in that video. And in this particular video, we're talking the top movies of 2023. Maybe not in everyone's opinion, but in my opinion, here you're going to get JC's list, my top 10 films of the year from this previous year that I got a chance to watch. Did I get a chance to watch every single film that I wanted to watch? That'd be a resounding hell no. Unfortunately, did not get a chance to tune into as many as I'd like to last year. Had a lot of things going on, but smaller list than I usually would give you. I want to go through some of these honorable mentions, and I'm going to share my Letterboxd page. You guys can follow me on there if you want. It's JC Cruz on there on Letterboxd. I'll share you guys the name for sure if you guys want to follow me on there. But I'll show you guys my Letterboxd list. I'll point out some honorable mentions of some of the other films that I watched throughout the year, and then we'll get into the top 10 list. So with no further ado, let's get into this shit. My top 10 films of the year here on JC's Pop Culture. Just my opinion. Would love to hear yours. Drop them in the comments here before you get done watching the video. As you go throughout here, I'd ask you, hit that thumbs up button. Helps me a ton. And be sure to subscribe here for more movie news in the future. All right, so first of all, if you want to follow me on Letterboxd, like I said, there it is, JC Cruz. Give me a follow. I'm putting together lists. My rankings I obviously keep private until the end of the year. As you can see, it's still private right now because I haven't got the video out. Once the video is uploaded, I'll unlock this list. You'll be able to see my 2023 list, my 2022 list. I don't think I have a 2021. I don't think I had started with Letterboxd yet back then, but I'm going to do that throughout the year. I have other lists too, rankings and stuff on there you can check out, but like my 2024 list, as I keep it running on there, it'll be locked until I do drop my 2024 video next year. Then I'll unlock it. You'll be able to see that list. So once you're watching this video on YouTube, you can now go onto my Letterboxd and see the list in its entirety if you want. But just scrolling through here, I want to point out some honorable mentions, I guess, some films that I thought deserved mentioning here. Obviously, not too many here near the bottom of the list. It's a Wonderful Life. I got to mention that one first, just as honorable mention, just because I'm such a fan of It's a Wonderful Life. Like my favorite Christmas movie of all fucking time. I love that. I think it's such a great message, great story. And so I thought, having a horror movie, especially a slasher movie, as much as I love slashers, that it would really be something special. You get Justin Long involved in horror. That's usually fun. And I actually did get a lot of enjoyment out of this movie, but it wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. So that's why it's a little bit further down on the list there. And, the bottom half of my rankings of, the movies I saw in 2023 in total, I guess you could say. But still, I thought it was an interesting idea taking, not only a Christmas horror, which I think is the most underrated season of horror, Christmas horror, and especially Christmas slashers. And not only doing that, but having it be with a twist of one of the best Christmas films ever, and the best, in my personal opinion, in It's a Wonderful Life. So I thought it was a pretty cool, fucking cool idea. So I wanted to talk about it in honorable mentions, even though it's not high up on my list or anything. Just recently trying to catch up on some movies that I wanted to watch to be able to add to this list. I did watch Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor, the latest entry of the Hell House franchise. It's an underrated horror franchise, in my opinion. You can find them on Shudder if you want to watch them. Found footage movies. The original one was like a haunted house that people went through, and then you find the backstory out in the second and third one. Second and third entries not as great as the first one. The original Hell House LLC movie, I think, extremely underrated. But I think that this one, Hell House LLC Origins, is probably my favorite since that original film. I really did enjoy this one, so I wanted to mention it here in honorable mentions as well. Blue Beetle surprised me. James Gunn's talked about this character, Jaime Reyes, going to continue throughout the DCU as the Blue Beetle. Kind of the first, that's not the first film. We know Superman Legacy is going to be the first film of the DCU, but Blue Beetle, kind of the first character we're going to see continue on. So I was interested to see how it turned out. I know a lot of these 2023 DC movies did not make a good money, and I understand that because, damn, why would you want to go see something when you know it's about to end? You announced James Gunn's DCU, I think Warner Brothers kind of played themselves on that one, announcing it maybe a little bit too soon because then everyone knew that these movies weren't going anywhere. Blue Beetle, they tried to combat that a little bit, saying this character would continue. I think maybe it did a little bit better because of that. But I think people that did take a chance and tune into Blue Beetle actually enjoyed it, myself included. I was surprised by how funny it was. George Lopez's character was not what I was expecting George Lopez to be. Kind of get that fucking stoner shit from him. It was pretty funny, so got to mention it in honorable mentions. Strays, fucking hilarious. One of the most underrated comedies of the year. Always got to touch on comedies when I get a chance to, because we don't get enough of them throughout the year. And then moving on to some other honorable mentions, I want to touch on Renfield. Renfield's a movie that I figured would be in my top 10. You're talking, Dracula, you're talking Nick Cage. The real reason it's not, and you guys have heard me hate on this before, it's fucking Nicholas Hoult, man. I've talked about it in past videos. I've just not been a fan of him in too many things that I've seen him in, save for like The Menu. I guess he was okay as Beast, maybe some other things here and there, but for the most part, I really haven't enjoyed him. And I think for me, he's one of the reasons I didn't like Renfield. Him, and of course, the cop storyline that a lot of people talked about. For me, if I got more Nick Cage's Dracula, would have loved that even more. Could have maybe cracked the top 10. Megan, I thought was okay, not as high on as everyone else. You see it not reaching quite into the top 10. And then getting into the last couple of honorable mentions, I wanted to talk about Outlaws, Adam Devine from Workaholics. Got to mention that. I thought that was an underrated comedy. It's probably higher on my list than most people's are. But like I said, when I get a good comedy, I'm going to rate it pretty highly just because we don't fucking ever get any good comedies anymore, especially rated R comedies. Scream 6. Obviously, you see it low. Most people have this film in their top 10. I was not a fan of Scream 6, man. I'm going to be honest. I don't want to say that I wasn't a fan of it because it's for Scream. It's a lot like Evil Dead and other franchises. I don't think they've really ever made, a bad Scream movie to this point, hardly. You could maybe make a case for Scream 3. Some people would argue Scream 4, but I put Scream 6 right there alongside those two for me. I just did not enjoy it near as much as Scream 5. I don't know if it's because it was in New York. I don't know if it was, the villain reveal at the end being over the top a little bit like some have talked about. I think another thing that played into it was obviously Nev Campbell being out of it, but Dewey, for me, no Dewey. That hurts me as well. I hated they killed off Dewey in Scream 5. I get why they did it, but I really enjoyed Scream 5 a lot more than I did Scream 6. I know a lot of people felt the other way, but I was not the biggest fan, so it's not in my top 10. And a film, we're talking horror, that I thought would be in my top 10 ended up just outside of it. Evil Dead Rise just dropped a little bit when I saw some other films later in the year, but I think I enjoyed this more than a lot of other people. I loved some of the Easter eggs and callbacks to the other films in the franchise. I know some people hated on it, said the 2013 film was better. I do agree there, but I think, like I said, to go with Scream, and I think I mentioned it there, they haven't made a fucking bad Evil Dead movie yet to this point. Evil Dead Rise was enjoyable. And then getting close here to the top 10, just got a few more that I want to mention here horror-wise. I might do a separate horror ranking list if I get a chance to. But Saw 10, finally got a chance to watch it as I was cleaning up on some movies that I needed to watch here that I wanted to include because I thought they would maybe get into this top 10. Didn't quite make it, but Saw 10, one of the better Saw films. I understand why people were saying it. Maybe their favorite of the franchise. I don't think I can go that far with it, but I fucking love having a story just based on, Jigsaw himself. Tobin Bell gets to flex his acting chops, and it took us, till 10 movies in the franchise for us to solely focus on that character, but I loved what they did with it, and hopefully Saw 11 is just as good as Saw 10 was. As we know, it's coming soon as well. Sick, really high on my list, just missed out on the top 10. I enjoyed it more than Scream 6, guys, and I think, Kevin Williamson is a reason why, man, for me. I love Kevin Williamson. He's one of the reasons that, I love that original Scream so much, and really anything that Kevin Williamson writes, I've tend to enjoy throughout the years, including, the TV series, The Following, you name it, throughout the time. I know what you did last summer, especially if you get Kevin Williamson involved in a fucking slasher, I'm on board. So when I heard that, I was like, I got to check Sick out. And, at the beginning of the year, it was up high in my list. I think it was top 5 at one point. Obviously coming out so early as it did, I believe it came out last January or February, fell down, but certainly one of the honorable mentions that I wanted to call out here, just missing out at number 12. And then just barely missing out on my top 10, film that I finally got a chance to watch recently. I didn't get a chance to watch it and do a review. You guys know that follow my other channel, Country Roads Webcast here on YouTube, that throughout college football season, it's kind of hard for me to do shit because I got a lot going on covering WVU football the way that I do. But throughout the off season here, try and get more videos out for you guys. And I'm going to try and do a better job in 2024, putting out more reviews and stuff in general. But having said that, loved Thanksgiving, Eli Roth, the spoof trailer that came out, fucking can't talk apparently, the spoof trailer that came out in the Grindhouse movie. This was one of the only trailers in that film that had yet to, have its own feature-length movie. I think there's only 1 or 2 left that have it now. And this was just awesome for me. It really was a callback to like 80s and 90s slashers. It had that type of vibe to it, maybe even, early 2000s slashers. I know a lot of people are hating on the dialogue, the character decisions, but I thought all of it felt very purposeful by Eli Roth for me, that he was purposely nodding back to those type of films and, playing with that genre. I love the fact that they've got a sequel coming out with it. I hope this becomes a franchise because, I fucking love slashers. I'm a sucker for them. And it's a holiday-based slasher that we haven't gotten yet. So love the success of it. I think we've got one coming up here in 2024 in Founders Day, another holiday-based slasher film. So I love that slashers are making a comeback here in recent years. My favorite genre of horror. So now that I've rambled on for too fucking long, I'm probably going to have to try and edit some of that out because like that's 10 minutes on just honorable mentions. Let's get into the top 10 right now. Top 10 films of 2024 2023 for me. Like I said, I know my list is fucking a little bit different than anyone else's always, usually, but like I said, that's just my opinion, just my list. Would love to hear yours. These are just the films that I enjoyed the most this past year, but let's get into it. Starting with number 10 and going right along with what we're talking about with horror, guys. Totally Killer. I really enjoyed this. I believe it was an Amazon Prime movie. And obviously, I really enjoyed it because I talked about, throwing back to the 80s and 90s, Eli Roth did with Thanksgiving. This movie obviously did taking place in the 80s, but it also did mixed a couple of genres, and it's like time travel, it's slashers, and then it's, going back with the 80s nostalgia and mixing in a little bit of comedy. So you get almost, that just like Scream type of feel that a lot of those, when you have that meta kind of influence, self-referential, almost know that you're in a horror movie type vibe with the comedy involved, kind of tongue in cheek at times. So you got that in Totally Killer. Then you get an awesome time travel aspect to it as well. And I'm a sucker for time travel. I love time travel movies. Fucking Back to the Future, one of the all-time favorites. Everything Everywhere all at Once. I know that's more interdimensional than time travel, but anything like that, different dimensionals, fucking idiot. Sorry guys, I'm fucking struggling today. Different dimensions, alternate realities, time travel. I love that type of shit. So you get almost a blend of sci-fi and horror and comedy with Totally Killer, and I thought it was really well done. You get the young lady that plays, I think, Sabrina the Teenage Witch now in the reboot. I haven't ever really watched that, save for her coming into Riverdale, because I did enjoy Riverdale, but I know her more from Mad Men. I fucking loved that series, and I thought she did a really good job in this Totally Killer movie, and you get some other good cast in there as well. So Totally Killer coming in at number 10, kicking off my top 10 movies of 2023. Then moving on to number 9, guys, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I think it's the only animated film that makes this list. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ninja Mayhem. I know a lot of people had that in their list. I haven't got a chance to finish it yet. I actually started it, wanted to get a chance to watch it before I got this list done, but it was just getting too late, guys. Like I said, it's better late than never getting this out, but, some of this stuff I didn't get a chance to get in on this list. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles seems like one I'm really going to enjoy, but talking about animated films, obviously Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse or Into the Spider-Verse was the one that kind of influenced animation styles of that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie and kind of opened up a new doorway of animation. And they even expanded upon that, I think, in Across the Spider-Verse. That's one thing that really impressed me when I went and saw this one in theaters, was just the way that they animated this. I don't even understand how they did it. It almost just looked like, because you got all these characters that are animated differently. They're all functioning differently. I mean, it's really a comic book come to life. Just an awesome, treat, not only just for the story alone, obviously is great. When you bring in the multiverse, you bring in the different Spider-Mans, all the cool stuff you get, the Pedro Pascal character, all of that is awesome. But I think just alone, you could go watch this just as like an art piece, just to watch how brilliantly it's animated, and it would probably crack your top 10 for that alone. So although I really enjoyed the story of the first Into the Spider-Verse movie better, this blew me away visually in this movie. So it could not be in my top 10 just for that alone. So it comes in here at number 9 because of that. And then at number 8, controversial here. Oh my God, a guy putting Barbie in his top 10 films of the year. Fucking sue me. I didn't feel the way a lot of people felt about it as far as it, talking down to men or anything like that. I thought that it was getting across the message that it wanted to get across in the movie, but it also wasn't, attacking men in my perspective. I really got something out of it, especially as far as I'm a person that really has a big anxiety and a big fear of death. And so I thought that the way that this movie like glorified life, especially some of the stuff at the end, I'm not going to get into spoilers for any of these movies, obviously, but really, it got me emotional at a couple points. And also, it was something that my wife really enjoyed and it meant a lot to her. So obviously seeing her get such enjoyment out of a movie in theaters and stuff like that and how much it impacted her really raised the level of it for me as well. But I thought it was just really well put together, not even speaking on the emotional aspects of how it affected me and, people close to me, which is one reason it was high on this list for me. But also I thought that the comedy in it was really well done. And I talked earlier about how much I enjoy comedy. And I thought that this was a pretty good tongue in cheek comedy. It's at some satirical. And I almost wondered at times, I was like, I'm fucking surprised that Mattel let him come at them like this, but it was interesting. You get a great cast. Obviously, Margot Robbie did a great job. Ryan Gosling, phenomenal job. And then I thought Will Ferrell, underrated as, one of the executives in the movie and stuff. So good comedy, heartfelt story. Greta Gerwig, awesome job. I think that I really related to, and that's the thing that I came away from from the movie is wanting to watch some more of her things, because I think just the way that she wrote about, feeling about life kind of touched my own anxieties about my fear of death and shit, and the way that I feel about life. And so it almost made me feel like, oh, there's someone else out there that kind of feels the way I do about it, with some of the ways that she wrote into this movie, some of the themes that she implied throughout it. So it cracked my top 10. Sue me, guys. I don't give a fuck. Barbie's my number 8 film of the year. All right, moving on. Number 7, more later release here in 2023, Leave the World Behind. I talked about, I think in my 2021 list, I believe it was 2022, a film that was way up in the top 5 for me. Don't Look Up. I think that this film kind of feels like almost pseudo sequel to that movie. It's a similar type of vibe, like the world's ending, as far as almost like a fucking unseeable threat, I guess you could call it. Taking out the internet, shit like that. That's apocalyptic shit that, could really happen, that we're feared of here in the near future, unfortunately, with the times that we're living in, right? So, Don't Look Up touches on that. This touches on that. And I think that those are movies that really stick with you, because you can see shit like that potentially happening. We got another one coming out in 2024 that was on my most anticipated list from A24, in Civil War. Kind of some of the themes in this movie lays out will kind of be explored in that movie even further, I think. But I thought that this was really interesting, just the way that it played out. And for me, the main reason that it cracks my top 10, though, and you guys can see behind me, I fucking love physical media. I think that it's something that we're really pushing by the wayside, and we really shouldn't be. It's something that we really need to be embracing, because this movie, shows you the way that it ends. And I'm not going to spoiler it for anyone, but physical media plays a part in the ending of this movie, and really, the ending shot of this movie even. And I think that the message that I got out of it a lot was, if, something was to go down, and, we do lose internet, and we lose, I guess, any way to access any form of entertainment, really. Physical media is going to be anything that we can turn to if we have electricity still at the time, without internet and everything like that. So I don't know. It was really just an important message, I guess, in that way for me, as someone that loves movies, loves physical media. I'm that way with, music and video games as well. I like to have the physical fucking copy in my hand. So that impacted me. And just obviously, as I talked about with the end of the world shit, that's going to hit you in some type of way. So cracks my top 10 there. At number 7, the Julia Roberts Netflix vehicle, Leave the World Behind. Then number 6, just missing out on the top 5. This is a movie that I thought for sure would be in my top 5 when I first saw it, and it was throughout most of the year. What the fuck am I talking about, guys? I don't know. It's been too long. I got to record here more often. Maybe I can get these words out right and shit. But Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 obviously ties to stuff I'm going to continue to be updating here on JC's Pop Culture with the DCU, James Gunn's DCU coming along. We're going to continue to drop those updates. His final film here dealing with the Guardians of the Galaxy, probably his final film here dealing with Marvel ever, really. And it was absolutely a phenomenal job by James Gunn. Just the way that he really tied up the trilogy. You didn't think that, you could love a film as much as that original Guardians, especially as a lot of people didn't enjoy Guardians 2 as much. I'm not in that camp. I liked it. I'm a fucking huge Kurt Russell fan, so I'm not going to go wrong there. I did think it was a step back a little bit from the first one, but that first one's one of the best films in the entire MCU, one of the most underrated films in the MCU. But I think with Volume 3, he really gave Marvel a hit at a time when they really need it, as a lot of their things are swings and misses right now lately. I know that that's obviously a big topic of discussion, but one thing that they didn't swing and miss on in 2023, and maybe one of the only things recently, was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It was funny, just like all the, first couple Guardians movies was. The action was phenomenally shot. I think of that scene in the spaceship, and really when I was watching that, all I could think about was, man, I can't wait to see how James Gunn shoots Superman's action scenes, with how he's filming this awesome action scene here for this Guardians Volume 3 movie. But obviously what really hit home for me, and I'm sure a lot of people, was the emotional storylines between complete CG characters, man. I mean, none of these are fucking real. Raccoon and his friends, Rocket Raccoon and all his friends in the backstory, no spoiler alerts, but that tragic tale, none of those are real characters. They're all CGI creations that James Gunn really freaking made us, tear our fucking hearts out for, feeling for those guys, those CGI creations. So that just phenomenally shows you how good James Gunn can, convey emotions in his movie, how good he can write dialogue, how good he can tell a story with that pathos and that emotion coming out. And phenomenal job doing it here in Guardians 3, and just gets me super excited for what he's going to do for the DCU here, nearly in my top 5, coming in at my number 6 film of 2023. And then getting into the top 5, guys. Obviously you guys have heard me rave over this movie. I've got, an hour plus long spoiler review for it here on the channel. You can go watch. So I won't wax poetic too much about The Flash because I know most people probably have this near the bottom of their 2023 list, right? I'm one of the few that's got it near the top, but I don't give a shit because to me, this movie was really, it did everything that I wanted it to do. Spotty CGI aside, put that to the side. I understand that. I get it. Spotty CGI is there. I'm not arguing it. But for me, getting Michael Keaton's Batman back alone was going to put this way up on my list. The emotional stuff between the Flash and his mother, I thought was really well done. And I think, obviously, Man of Steel being arguably the greatest comic book film of all time, in my opinion, right up there with Zack Snyder's Justice League and some others, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and Endgame. I put those all in, kind of the same class. I think that this going back to Man of Steel and getting to go back to some of those events was really cool. And the way that they kind of, I guess, sent us a juke with the way they used Supergirl and Batman in this film was nice. And then, of course, at the end, I'm not going to get into too much spoilers, but the fan service, I guess you could call it. But as I pointed out in my spoiler review, I thought it was fan service done in the right way because it was organically weaved into the plot there at the end of the film. But when you bring in some of those things and, Kevin Smith fan in me enjoying the one aspect that came in there at the end. Like I said, trying to keep it spoiler free here as much as possible. Please check out my spoiler review to understand my love of this movie more, because I know a lot of people really hate it. But Andy Muschietti directed. We're going to get to see him direct more in the future DC here in James Gunn's DCU. He'll be directing the Batman Brave and the Bold. I'm excited for that because I actually really enjoyed this film a lot more than others did. The Flash is my number 5 film of 2023 as we get into the top 5 here. And then moving on, number 4, a Christmas movie. I'm a sucker for Christmas films, guys. I fucking love Christmas, man. Eventually, maybe I wanted to do it this year, didn't get a chance to. Maybe next year I'll do, some Christmas rankings. We'll do some Christmas horror rankings, my Christmas film rankings. And this might be one that may sneak its way into there because it was that good this year. And I think that already Paul Giamatti's won some Golden Globe for it, and he may end up getting some nods at the Oscars for it as well. We'll see what happens, but you get Alexander Payne back, and you get Alexander Payne back in a big way with a hell of a comedy, dramedy, whatever you want to call it here. But The Holdovers, guys, I believe it's out on Peacock now. If you haven't watched this, go watch it. Yes, it's pretty much a Christmas film, but it's really good. I think you can watch it at any time. Just an acting masterclass by Paul Giamatti, and I think that the character building is what really, this movie I didn't think was going to crack my top 5 for a while, but it was one that I kept moving up the list because after I watch it, the more I think about it, the more the themes hit me, the more that I understand what they were going for as far as understanding these characters being the way that they are. You learn throughout the film a little bit, just slowly unpeeling the layers of their character, why they are the way they are. You learn a little bit more about them. And I thought it was just brilliantly done the way that was weaved, and to the point that days after the movie, you're thinking about it and you're picking up on different themes and you're like, oh shit, okay, I understand that now. And so for me, it was one that just kept moving up the list to the point it cracked the top 5, got all the way up here to number 4. And if you haven't yet, go watch Alexander Payne's The Holdovers. They're on Peacock. And shout out to the young man that played the character in this film as well, Dominic Sessa. Yeah, he played the main character in this film right alongside Paul Giamatti. He's the young man that gets stuck at the school with Paul Giamatti. Could not believe this was his first film, guys. He did an awesome job in this as well. So The Holdovers for sure in my top 5 right here at number 4, which brings me to my top 3 films of 2023, guys. Here we go. Let's get into this shit. My top 3 films of the year. And I really went back and forth on all three of these. All 3 of these actually at one point were my number 1 film of the year. So all 3 of these films I really fucking love this year, guys. I got to say that before we get into it. But number 3, it's Air. And this was probably my number 1 film of the year up until late November, early December. I mean, I thought all year long, nothing's going to top this movie. I fucking love this, guys. Obviously, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon back together is a selling point alone. When Ben Affleck directs, it's usually a home run. He doesn't really miss when he directs. All of his films I've loved. And then, of course, you add into the fact that Michael Jordan is one of my favorite, not only sports figures of all time, but pop culture figures in general ever to exist in the world. So it was something just right up my alley, almost a film directly crafted for me. Plus you get 80s nostalgia again. I mentioned earlier how much I enjoy that. So all of those things were really, great just going into the movie alone. And then you go watch the film and it really delivers on those expectations and then some for me, because I think you get great comedy from Ben Affleck as Phil Knight in this movie. I was fucking just dying laughing at a lot of his lines. When you breathe, just remember that you're breathing. Just shit like that he was delivering, all that crazy Zen shit he was spitting was hilarious. Obviously, Matt Damon, fucking phenomenal when he delivers the speech to Michael Jordan that really, sells him in the room there. Like I said, I'm gonna keep it spoiler free, but that was well done. That was, one time I shed tears in the film. Hate that I didn't get to drop a review for this on the channel, but Viola Davis also made me shed tears in the film there at the end when she's talking to Matt Damon. She put on a hell of a performance. Just great performances all across this movie. I mean, Chris Tucker, Marlon Wayans, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. You can go on down the list. I thought just everything in this movie was just perfectly crafted the way they put this together. And it's a story that everyone should really, hear. I can't believe that it's one that hasn't been told more often than it has here. And it probably hasn't been told better ever than it has in this movie Air, which I think was still on Prime. Hopefully it still is. If it is and you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. Came out early in the spring of 2023, but stayed up near the top of my list all year long. Ends up my number 3 film of the year, Air, guys, directed by Ben Affleck. Him and Matt Damon back together, putting together another Quincy Oso performance there. Fucking masterpiece. It's one that I'll cherish for a while there. Top 3 of the year. And then number 2, guys. Oh, man, I almost put this number 1. I haven't got a chance to rewatch it. That might be why it's sitting at 2 right now and not number 1, because it's one that I just watched a couple of weeks ago while I'm trying to, watch films to make this list. And because I knew it was one that would probably end up near the top of my list just because of all the good things I've heard about it. Plus, A24 usually doesn't miss a lot as well. And it's Ironclaw, guys. Directed by Sean Durkin. You get Jeremy Allen White of Shameless and, now the Bear fame. Obviously, Zac Efron in this movie. Holt McClaney. Just great performances by every fucking one involved in this. And if you don't know the story, it's the Von Erich, family, classic wrestling family. I'm a avid wrestling fan, but more so back in the early 90s, mid 90s, early 2000s, that type of, and I was more WCW. So I didn't know a ton about the Von Erichs, but I learned a little bit about the story before I watched the movie. Knew I was getting into some tragic shit. And it definitely is one that will absolutely have you shedding a ton of tears, but it's extremely well done the way they craft the story. Can't say enough good things about it. Late release in December of 2023. If you haven't got a chance to watch it yet, get out to the theater, watch it whenever it comes out on demand, because this is a phenomenal movie. You're going to be hearing a lot about it during the Oscar season here coming up in March when the Oscars come on, because it's that good, guys. Just a heart-wrenching story. If you have siblings, especially, it's going to really tear you apart. But in general, just, I think everyone can relate to it just because the family aspects, obviously, but just missed out as being my top film of the year. And, when I rewatch it, I may feel like, damn, I wish I'd have put that number 1. But definitely one of the best films of the entire year of 2023 for sure. The Iron Claw. Check it out if you guys haven't yet. And number 1 for me, Killers of the Flower Moon. And this is a film that I remember putting on my most anticipated list when it was supposed to come out back in 2022. I had it on my list at the end of 2021. So I've been looking forward to this shit for a while, and I think it lived up to the hype and then some. And one reason I was so excited about it is because obviously Scorsese. I mean, who's not going to be excited about a Martin Scorsese movie, especially, one with De Niro and DiCaprio involved together. But just me, I think Wolf of Wall Street is probably the most underrated Scorsese film. And I think Wolf of Wall Street is one of the most underrated comedies ever made. It's one of my favorite comedies ever created. I could watch that film over and over, and it never gets old, and I can never laugh my ass off. So getting Leo and Scorsese back together again had me on board. Then you get De Niro involved too. I hear about that. I'm like, okay, I didn't know what the story was about. But then when I find that out and I'm like, I don't know anything about this, it's a story that definitely needs to be told, and more people probably don't know about this shit, and they need to, because it's just freaking, I mean, it's flabbergasting, man. It's appalling. It's all these things, whatever you want to name it. But just this story is incredible. Martin Scorsese did a great job putting it together the way that he did. I think that the way that he unfolded it was really good, because you're almost kind of learning of this heinous plot, this heinous underbelly that is involved in overthrowing these families involved in this Osage tribe back in the 1920s. And the way that Scorsese unfolds it is brilliantly done, as he is one to do. Great performance by Leo. He has these fake teeth. He's playing, kind of this country bumpkin type character, which I can say because I live in West Virginia. And I thought he did a great job of it. And he had me just laughing a lot of times with the way that he played it. Because, obviously this character that he's playing, he's a fucking dumbass, guys. I mean, literally. And he's playing it that way. And it's funny that he is. And, you get De Niro as the antagonist, disguised as kind of a protagonist, throughout the movie, as he was for the people of the Osage tribe as well. And he did a phenomenal performance, kind of playing a villainous role. Uh, and I almost got, Goodfellas vibes from it, with the way that Ray Liotta played that character in Goodfellas. So I really just fucking thought this was phenomenally done. I thought it was a masterpiece in storytelling, a masterpiece in characters. And then I would obviously be remiss if I didn't mention Lily Gladstone in her performance in this film. She deserves all the recognition she's already gotten and still gonna get as well. So for me, it was the best film of the year. I really, was so just taken aback by the story and just wanted to learn more about it that I bought the book as well. It's a great read. I think it's only, 300-400 pages. So if you really enjoyed the movie, I encourage you to check out the book as well. If you haven't seen the film, you're really missing out. Not only is it Scorsese, De Niro, and DiCaprio together, but this is a story I think that everyone should know about. So check out Killers of the Flower Moon. It's my number one movie of 2023, guys. All right. And so there you have it. Better late than never, right? But my 2023 top 10 films that I got a chance to watch, new release wise last year. Like I said, didn't get a chance to watch everything that I fucking wanted to watch, unfortunately. Hopefully, I'm going to do a better job of that in 2024. I'm sure here in a few weeks, I'm going to see something that is a 2023 release that I fucking love and be like, damn, I wish I would have seen that sooner. So I got to put it on my list. But for now, that's how the list stands. Some honorable mentions I wanted to touch on. And then my top 10 there, culminating with Air, The Iron Claw, and of course, Killers of the Flower Moon being my top film of the year. But that's just my list, just my opinions on the film that I enjoyed this year. Would love to hear some of the films you enjoyed this year. If you want to share your list down in the comments, really appreciate that. Those interactions really help hit the YouTube algorithm and shit, as does hitting the thumbs up button if you didn't on this video, liking it'll help a ton. And be sure to subscribe here for more movie news coming in the future. We're gonna hit some 2024 reviews and maybe even some more lists and rankings coming out in the near future as well. Plenty of pop culture news to talk about, though. So be sure to share your top films with me now that you've heard my top films of 2023. And we'll be back soon with a new video here on JC's Pop Culture. Until then, I'm JC. Later, film fans.